introduce yourself to Father Brandt. Inspiring and humorous would be an understatement. With a little love and faith, he brings a twist. I apologize now. Please give a loud New York welcome to Father Brandt.
Please be seated. Thank you for that warm welcome. I feel it every time I come here. I helped out after 9/11. I was here in October of 2001 and made some terrific friends at the morgue and in your police department, and have kept them near and dear. And either they come to Chicago every year or I get out here every year. And I always feel right at home, like as if I was born here in New York, only I don't talk funny. So it's a pleasure to be back, and I felt that same New York welcome yesterday when Detective Matt Edelman showed up at the airport to pick up my brother and me. Where is Matt? Matt, thank you. Matt says, on the way to the hotel, I gotta show you my favorite bar. His favorite bar. We're gonna stop at a bar. And nothing for nothing. He said, we're gonna stop in there just for a beer. And we stopped in there, and I was tired from a long trip. Yeah, 2 hours. And we were there for a little while before I realized that in the whole bar, it was a little dark, not much light in there, and I didn't realize until after we were there for probably a half hour that everyone in there was a dude. It was all guys. There were no women in this whole place. All the waiters and the bartenders and all the customers, and I started to grow just a little uncomfortable, Matt. And I said to the guy I was dancing with, "What the hell kind of place is this?" The guy had an unusual name. It was like Jussie or something like that. Anyway. That clown, who I never heard of before, is no friend to Chicago and no friend, I'm guessing, to any of us. Anyway, we went from there. We left that place. I got the hell out of there as quick as I could. And then we went, before leaving Manhattan, we stopped to rob a gas station so we could afford the toll to get over to Staten Island on the Verrazano Bridge. I was highly impressed when we got here. What a beautiful campus, beautiful hotel, very nice setting. Look at this venue. Look at these people. Look around you, ladies. You look beautiful. Gentlemen, you look okay. But this is very, very impressive, and I am really honored to be here with you. And coming here, I realized, here in this location, whether you're coming from Manhattan or coming from any of the other boroughs or from wherever you're coming from, me from Chicago, this setting is equally inconvenient to all of us. So congratulations for choosing it. I understand the locals here in Staten Island call the island just the island. Is that correct? Or the forgotten borough. Can't imagine why. Anyway, I learned it is the third largest borough, size-wise, acreage-wise, and yet the least populated, with just under 500,000 folks living here on the island, because no one else can afford to get across that bridge to live here. But it's also, what I understand, is the most affluent island in the city, with the highest mean income. So anyway, it's great to be here on the island. I was only here one other time, and that was on one of my return trips after 9/11 to visit my friends from the morgue and from NYPD. And my brother Bill and I, Bill is sitting over here on my right, he and I came together that year, and we made it a point one afternoon to visit every borough using the public transportation. And we had one beer in every borough. And it took all afternoon to do that. but it was really exciting. We got to, of course, the Bronx, Brooklyn. We started out in Manhattan, where I always stay at St. Monica's up on the Upper East Side. And we got to Queens, and our last stop was here. We took the ferry across, and we found the first bar we could. We go in, we have a beer, and we asked the lady, who our bartender, owned the bar, said, while we're here on the island, what shall we see? And she says, the ferry station. Go right back and go back to Manhattan. It is an honor, though, to be back, and I thank the team here who put this evening together. What a wonderful evening. Thank you for the honor of coming to address this group. When I spoke with Lindsay a few months back, I said, what do you want me to talk about? She said, talk about 10 minutes. And she says, we're going to have 400 or 500 people there. It's going to be a very classy event. I was more than a little nervous with this prospect. I was like a 10-year-old kid at a Jerry Sandusky sleepover. So I was more than just a little nervous. But all right, stop it. I can only make that joke because the Catholic Church has such a clean record in that area. I want to thank the bartenders for settling my nerves earlier, the last couple hours. In fact, I'm feeling right now a little bit like Artie Lang felt 2 years ago when he was here. Bartender back, outside in the lobby out here, her name is Mary, and she's a lovely young lady and a great bartender. So if you need anything, just hail Mary. Lindsay also, when she told me that I was on for tonight, she said, "Can you do me a favor and include a little humor?" I said, "I'm sorry, that's not my nature, but I will do my best." So let me just tell you a quick, kind of a funny story. At the bar, out in the lobby, I ran into a couple of ladies who are here, and I owe you an apology. I don't know where you are. These women were speaking with this heavy British accent, and I said, "What part of England are you two ladies from?" These two ladies. Tiny bit sizable, I don't know where you are, but they were generously sized, and they said, "It's Wales, you idiot." I said, "I'm so sorry. What part of England are you two Wales from?" As long as you're enjoying the little bar skit, I'm going to tell you one more. Did you hear about... True story. Jesus walks into a bar, and there's a guy sitting there with a cast on his leg and a cast on his arm. He was all beaten up and bruised. He looked like the wife of an NFL player. And my middle name is politically correct, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of that. Jesus walks up and he touches the arm of this fella, and the cast falls off, and he touches the guy's leg, and the cast on his leg falls off, and the guy jumps up and he's like, "Wow, I feel terrific. Thank you, Jesus." Jesus walks up to the next guy. He's got an eye patch on, and Jesus reaches out and touches the man's eye, and all of a sudden the guy takes the eye patch off. He's like, "Oh my God, I can see perfectly. Thank you, Jesus." And Jesus walks up to the third guy sitting there at the bar. He's got an NYPD t-shirt on, he's got crutches. And he's about to reach out and touch the man, and he says, "Get away from me, Jesus, I'm on disability." Is there just a tiny bit of truth to that one? As long as you're enjoying them, I'm going to throw out one more. All right, what time do we have to be out of this dump? So a giraffe walks into a bar, and he announces to everybody there, "The high balls are on me." And a brown bear walks into the same bar, big brown bear, and he bellies up to the bar, and he's sitting there at the bar, and he says, "I'll have a shot and a beer." Bartender says, "Excuse me?" The big brown bear says, sitting there at the bar, "I'll have a shot and a beer." And the bartender says, what's with the long pause? Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds. I know some of you are writing that one down for later, right? So I know we've recognized many police officers here tonight. By the way, that reporter who spoke a few moments ago said something very profound, said a lot of very profound things. I asked the guy next to me, who happens to be from New York here, I said, it was kind of loud, of course. I said, what affiliation, what station is she with? He goes, Fox. I said, I know, I agree. What station is she with? Anyway, you said something particular. There you are. Room 325. I don't know who's at 325, but are they in for a surprise tonight? Boy, do they owe me. We've got many police officers here tonight. Just by show of hands, if I may, who here is representing any jurisdiction as an active or retired member of the law enforcement community? God bless you. God bless you. And we have other first responders here, I presume. Any members of the fire service, paramedics, firefighters? That's good to know. I'll speak slowly. I'm kidding. Actually, you're the smarter ones. Why bring a gun to work when you can bring a pillow? Coppers, I expect an escort back up to my room. 325. I got a story about a confession I heard from a firefighter a few years back. He came to confession because he had a side job. Imagine that, a firefighter with a side job. And he built decks, patios and decks, and he would always overcharge. When he would do a job, he would estimate that he needed so much wood, but it was way more wood than he would need, and then he would use that in the next job, and then overcharge the next job. And his wife caught wind of this, and she said, "You're stealing. You're breaking the seventh commandment. You need to go to confession." So we have this discussion, and I said to him, "Okay, yeah, your wife was right. You've been stealing, but you know what? God forgives everything." God, I hope God forgives everything. Anyway, ma'am. Anyway, I said to him, I want you to for your penance, I want you to make a novena. And he looks at me, kind of dumbfounded. Imagine that, a fireman looking dumbfounded. And I was serious about that escort, fellas. He said, "I don't know how to make a novena, but if you have the plans, I have the lumber." One last public service story. Do you need another moment to let that one sink in, or are you good? One other first responder story. These, as all the family members can attest here, we are very proud of our loved ones who choose the most noble profession in the world, whether that be the fire service, whether that be law enforcement, and or military. Let's not forget our brave brothers and sisters, especially those away from their families right now. So these three young boys are bragging about their dads, and the first kid says, "My dad is the fastest man I know. He's a New York police officer, and he can chase down bad guys half his age and put them in jail." And the second kid says, "That's nothing. My dad is the fastest person I know. He's a New York firefighter, and he can race up the stairs of the Empire State Building in 15 minutes flat." And the third kid says, "That's nothing. My dad's the fastest guy I know. He works for sanitation. He gets off at 4 every day, but he's home by noon." sanitation workers here tonight. Of course not. They're in bed. They got to be up early tomorrow, right? By the way, Lindsay asked me to make this just long enough that it counts for Mass tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna talk just for a few more minutes. We share the same pride as your family members share, and I can certainly attest to the glowing pride that is shared by so many of you. And while you often are hated or spit on or feel totally underappreciated by the media sometimes, by politicians, I am grateful, and I know that I speak on behalf of the vast majority of tax-paying, God-fearing, and God-loving individuals, that you are appreciated and your work is not overlooked. So thank you for doing what I like to call God's work. You are. Lisa mentioned earlier how some of our officers from the emergency services unit, they will dress up like superheroes. And quite frankly, every time they put on their uniform, they are dressing like a superhero. I want to tell you this story about a Chicago policeman that I know. He went to get a tooth extracted, and the dentist tells him about the process and what's going to happen, and he says, what I'm going to do is give you a little sedative so that so you don't feel the pain of me pulling out your tooth. And this guy says, are you kidding? You know who I am? I'm a Chicago police officer, and I run into dangerous situations when bullets are flying, when everybody else is running out. You don't have to give me any kind of sedative. The doctor says, all right. I'll just give you a little bit of Novocaine, and that'll just kind of locally deaden the pain. He goes, are you not listening? I'm a Chicago policeman. I do things that nobody else would ever dare do. I don't need any kind of drugs to deaden any kind of pain. The doctor says, all right. He grabs the tools he needed to extract his tooth, and he slips the guy a little blue pill. And he says, I see we've got some takers of the blue pill in the crowd tonight. He says to the guy, take this, and the copper says, what's this for? He says, well, that'll give you something to hold on to while I yank your tooth. You are indeed superheroes. You are domestic soldiers. Our police officers, I'd like to remember those especially who can't be here right now because they're working this very moment. We remembered earlier those who can't be here because they have made that ultimate sacrifice. And I sometimes hear and I cringe when I hear so-and-so, this officer, this brave member of law enforcement community gave his life. No, they don't give their lives. Their lives are taken from them when they die a violent death. And I always like to clarify that when I speak publicly. They don't give their lives. They often fight for their lives. Their lives are stolen many times by repeated convicted felons who, because of a broken system, are where they should not be. And we need to work on that. Anyway, without getting too political, on this day in history, the U.S. entered into World War I. Can anyone tell me the year? 1917. Yeah, you were paying attention in school. 1917. On this day, March 6th, the United States entered into World War I. And to this day, even on our own streets, we're still fighting wars, thanks to our domestic soldiers and thanks to those who put on that uniform and bravely protect, oftentimes the most vulnerable. I was at one of our protests in Chicago, just kind of joining the guys on the front line, and my work as the directing chaplain of the Chicago Police Department brings me out into the districts and on the streets for many, many hours a week. And that's the best way to connect with our guys and gals out there doing God's work. And on one particular occasion a few years ago, I was speaking with one of the captains from the 1st District, our central business district. We have 22 districts in Chicago. And District 1, this captain, by the name of Laurel Bresnahan, she got into it with a protester who was waving a Bible right in her face. This guy had the Holy Bible, and he is pointing at her and pointing at this Bible, being obnoxious. Can you imagine that? One of these rebels being obnoxious. And he said, you people, he picked her out, I'm guessing because of her white shirt, she's a boss. You people stand against everything that this Bible contains. And she, in her wisdom, Laurel Bresnahan, brilliant woman, she says, "Sir, can I invite you to open that Bible to Romans 13? My dear friend, whom I reported to during 9/11, just following 9/11, he then was Captain Kenny McKeel. He retired after 35 years of service to NYPD as Inspector Kenny McKeel. He's going to share with us the words of Romans 13.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. Let every person be subordinate to the higher authorities, for there is no authority except God, and for those that exist have been established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority opposes what God has appointed, and those who oppose it will bring judgment upon themselves. For rules are not a cause of fear to good conduct, but only to evil. Do you wish to have no fear of authority? Well, then do what is good for you, and you will receive approval from it, for it is the servant of God for your good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword without purpose, and it is the servant of God to inflict the wrath of the evildoer. Therefore, it is necessary to be subject not only because of the wrath, also because of conscience. And that is the word of the Lord. Thank you.
Thanks. Those words were written 2,000 years ago by St. Paul to the people of Rome. But how applicable are they today? It is the job of the agent of God's wrath, namely a soldier, a police officer, a sentinel, to carry out sometimes God's justice, and sometimes it's not pretty. And sometimes it costs these soldiers, these officers, these sentinels their lives. But they will be richly rewarded. Our faith assures us of that. So tonight we remember all those who have lost their lives in the service of normalcy and in keeping that blue line intact between chaos and order. And we give thanks to God for not the way they died, but rather the way we remember them, and that is the way they lived. Why don't we close with prayer? I'd like to share with you a quick passage from an Old Testament book of the prophet Micah. Please kneel. The Old Testament prophet Micah writes, "You have been told, O man, what is good, and what the Lord requires of you. And that is simply to do what is right, to love what is good, and to walk humbly with your God." Do what is right, love what is good, and walk humbly with your God. As I leave you tonight, my prayer is the same. As you continue to carry out, those of you who are active still in law enforcement, and in thanksgiving for the careers of those who are retired law enforcers, thank you for following that command of doing what is good, loving what is right, and walking always humbly with your God. And finally, I'd like to pray that tonight Michigan State's score ends in 9 and Texas Tech's score ends in 3. Amen. Matt Edelman, I'll see you on the dance floor in a little while.